So yeah, you wanted to come on today and you just wanted to chat. What did you want to chat about?
Well, you had said a couple weeks ago that you're going to do a podcast about doing business with family.
Yeah, I had posted kind of a cryptic message to my Instagram my Instagram story about never get into business with family, and that post or story was the most commented message thing that I've ever posted. Like, I had hundreds of DMs about it, asking why, or just people saying facts, or just repost. Like, it was just insane.
Or people saying, "Don't leave me in the dark."
Yeah, I was blown away. And then there was a lot of people like, next podcast episode, and you know, we could have done it on the Tom and Jake podcast, but
Tom's not in town.
Tom's not in town, and you wanted to talk about it. And I think it's fitting because your family and your family is involved in some of my business, and my family is involved in some of my business. And there's been...
Right, but I've also grown... Like, my whole entire life has only ever been family-owned business.
Right.
I mean, my parents own my restaurant, or our restaurant, or their restaurant, I should say. It's not mine. It's not my restaurant.
Start with my, then ours, then no, sorry, theirs.
It's actually their restaurant. Well before I was born. So anyways, yeah, that's been my whole livelihood, and now we're into business for ourselves. And I mean, I think I see it. I see why so many people work with family. It's because it's easy to trust. It's easy. It's so much easier to trust your family than it is to just trust some random stranger off the street that you're hiring. So I totally get why
100%.
Why so many people hire family or go into business with family. It's just right off the bat, the trust level is there. It's not.
Yeah, I'll say the one thing about it before we dive into it is, like, working with family, there's a couple different ways to look at it. Like, there's working for family, and there's like being in business with family. Those are two different things. 'Cause, like, you know, I have family members that work for me.
Right.
But when you're invested into maybe a business, or you're in business together with family, that's where I think things can get really, really muddy. And it can get muddy the other way too, and you can cause problems. But instantly there's a trust level, because, you know, for the most part, your family wants your other family members to succeed and be good and everything. But that's not always the case either. Like, I think a big case in point, I don't know if you know, is Dane Cook's story. Dane Cook's brother siphoned millions of dollars out of his thing and basically made him broke.
The comedian.
Yeah. And but that was like his brother, and he would have, like, dude, I would have never guessed. I would have never known. Like, he just couldn't have predicted that. So, but going into it, yes, there's a trust there. Like, I know, like, for example, my brother, he does customer support for Tropic Color. I know he has, like, our best interest at heart with our business, and he doesn't want to, you know, I trust him. But then there's, like, other things where it's just like, when you get into financial business and investing with other family members, family to me is the most important thing kind of in this world. And it's like at the core of everything, you know, what we have and have most. Friends come and go, but family you're going to have forever. Right. But like business and going into business with family, if things go awry, it can really mess up a family dynamic and cause a lot of issues, a lot of, you know, just bitterness, and then people not wanting to go around other people, and just cause all this strife. And so that's kind of more about what my thing was about. Is just like, look, like, never go into business with family, because family is most important. And if you don't align right out the gate, I know you want to talk about, like, going into if you go into business with family, you should have the most upfront conversations, contracts, agreements, understanding, and keep in line with that moving forward. Like when something comes up, sit down and address those things. 'Cause I don't know how, like, deep I want to go into, like, what actually happened or has happened, but
I don't know how deep we want to go either, but, you know, we can always edit it out. So if we don't, if it gets too deep for us and we look at this at the end and we're like, we're not going to go there. But I want to backtrack a little bit before we move into that part of it. How you were talking about Dane Cook. I think for me personally, I don't care if you're family or anybody. I just don't, there's very, very, very few people that I trust on our money when it comes to our businesses.
Right.
And that includes family. Like, we have one person who really manages a lot of the money, but you're checking the accounts every single day.
100%.
And so,
and I still will get on about certain things.
Right.
Yo,
But it's not a stealing situation.
No,
It's just you, in my opinion, you just trust very few people on your money. And that will keep your family members or anybody who's on the outside from stealing from you as much as possible. I mean, we don't own businesses where we really have a lot of opportunity for people to steal. Like we have friends who own retail stores and my parents own restaurants. It's much easier for people to steal the cash, but our businesses don't have cash like that.
Right.
Dane Cook probably wasn't really having cash like that. It sounded like something.
He just talks about his brother like managed all his like finances and accounts and different things, and he was making so much money, and he just was like, I just was living, I wasn't checking my accounts, and my brother was like siphoning money to his accounts and forging documents, forging signatures to like move money to him and like make it, and just basically over the course of it, like big span of his career, stole millions and millions of dollars.
And I think where he failed himself at is, I mean, I'm probably more like Dane Cook. I don't look at the accounts like that, but you do.
Yeah.
And you definitely need somebody like that. If you're not that way, then you need somebody like a spouse or something that you can have watching your accounts so that doesn't happen. Because I think the nastiest thing that I've seen happen with families, and I'm not saying either one of ours, but the nastiest thing that I've seen with families is entitlement. And that's exactly what Dane Cook's brother, he was entitled.
Yeah.
He
felt
like
entitled to that money.
Right. And it's just like, I think for me, and I think for you too, I think we're on the same page of, again, we've never had anybody steal from us, but if you ask, we're going to give it to you. Like, we're not going to sit here and be successful in businesses and watch family members struggle to pay bills you get what I'm saying? Like, we're going to look out for them. And so when you have that entitlement creeping in, it's like, yo, if you would have asked, it would have been given to you. But don't come over here with that energy, because then that's what I think causes a lot of problems with family dynamics. I honestly think the number one characteristic is the entitlement.
Right. Because you are family, you feel like, you know, you're kind of owed something because you're a part of them, they're a part of you. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, to give a little context to my situation without throwing anyone under the bus, there's a family member of mine has invested into a couple of my ventures, and not that I even needed it, but it was more of like a olive branch offering, like, oh yeah, this will give you something to do, something to invest your money in. I don't financially need your money, but like, cool, like it lessens the financial load on me, I'm all for that, but also like it gives you an opportunity to make some money, so cool, we both win here, right? And then as time goes along, it's just like they expect more and more money. Oh, and like, why am I not making more here, or why am I doing this? And it's like, you don't do anything for this business at all to make it grow, to make it succeed.
Right.
You put a little money up, and then there's always this little like nitpick of like in questioning of this and that, and when is this going to happen? And it's just like, that's where I think some of that entitlement comes into play, and then it starts to rub me the wrong way. It's like, yo, you don't do anything. Like, the reason this is growing and getting bigger is because of me.
Right.
So if you want to help out and pitch in, but then there's been the words of throwing around like ownership. Well, I'm part owner. It's like, no, you're an investor. Okay, let's put it this way. If you are an owner, then why aren't you doing the ownership things? Ownership duties. Why aren't you doing any of the duties that any owner would do? And so then that causes frustration with me, and then I say that to them, and it's like you start having these disagreements, and that's where it can get really ugly. I mean, everything is okay and fine, but it's like that's the type of things we're talking about, where if you have two people who could get really ugly, money makes people funny, and it could cause a lot of problems, and you don't want that in family. No, you don't. Like, for the rest of your life. Like, I want my kids to be around that person, and so that's why my post was like, don't involve family and business, because it can get really ugly. But also, like, we have family involved in our business, and it's fantastic and fine too. So but it's like
I think it's a hierarchy thing, because we have family that works for us, and by no means do I think we're mean. I even hate to say bosses, because I really don't feel like I'm anybody's boss, but I think that there's a hierarchy, and it's understood that when decisions are made, that they have to go through the chain of command, which is what any normal business would do, right? Whether it's a family member or not, you don't necessarily have people, your managers and stuff, who are out here making executive decisions, right? Unless it might be an absolute emergency where you need to make a decision right there. There's a hierarchy. So I think there's just a difference between family members working for you and family members who are invested into something or ownership. And I think I really do truly believe, I'm not saying it would eliminate all the problems. I think it would eliminate a lot of problems had we or anybody who's getting into business with family has a contract, because then when people go outside of the contract or I want more money or I want more of this, you could simply say refer back to the contract.
I think it's having a contract, but even with a contract, things can change, right? If you're not, because this is where people get messed up. Like, just because you invest into something does not make you an owner of that thing. Right. There's a difference between investing in something, ownership. That's why there's angel investors, and angel investors are investors, and they're not, even though they might donate or invest $100,000+, they're not an owner.
Correct.
Like, they have equity and they're an investor in that company, but they're not, or like have like some return, but they're not an owner or an active owner and can make decisions. And so when you have people, it's like going into a certain thing, with clear understanding, like, hey, you're an investor in this situation, you putting in this money, you're an investor, and ultimately the decisions lie with me. Like, you don't get to just make these decisions because you're not an owner. And then if you claim to be an owner or you want to be an owner, then you need to do ownership duties.
But also, people have to understand that ownership is not just ownership duties. Ownership is also assuming the risk.
Right.
And if you're not assuming any of the risk, but you want all the reward, that's just not how life works.
Yeah, because that's the thing in all of our businesses, we own or like have complete, like all the risk falls back on us, right? And everything.
Well, we have actual partnerships where it falls on them as well.
No, I'm talking about like
with the family ones. Yes, 100%.
It's like all the risk ends up falling on us. We take care of all the responsibilities where there's like financial risk and just all the risk, but it's like the other people don't. And so, yeah, I don't know. It just can get really muddy. And so I think, yes, going into it with a contract is good, but that doesn't solve everything, right?
No.
Like, I have a contract with one of my family members, but like things change. For example, one of the investments that, I'm in partnership with the person is in a house. Well, interest rates have changed, mortgages have risen, the cost of the, accounting, everything has gone up, and this person still wants the same amount of money. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm getting less and less with each year, but you get to keep getting the same amount, if not more.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. Like, things shift and you're not doing any of the work, really.
Right.
So it's like, you have to also come to an understanding that, like, hey, as things shift within this business and change, we need to be able to come together and this contract isn't necessarily like set in stone. Like, it is like set in stone, but there needs to be room to shift and adjust with the way the world moves and the way the business moves. You may start off in that business being super, super active and being an active owner or investor, but if something happens and 5 years down the road, you're not doing a thing for the business and the person over here is doing everything,
right?
You need to shift those numbers. Like,
right.
That's not, you don't get to just keep the same ownership and not be
right.
doing the same duties that you were 5 years prior. And so there needs to be room for change and adjusting, and like, whether the contract says something or not, you need to be able to go back and be like, hey, yeah, this is all changed. This is how things are going to play out now.
I also think that, but this is with any relationship in life, like legitimately any relationship, there has to be a strong line of communication. And so when you have expectation and poor communication, you are setting yourself up for a recipe of disaster.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been the case with us. It's with our situation. It's kind of been, the expectations have just like keep stepping up, and the communication is not always the best on both sides.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's just a one-sided thing.
I'm not the best communicator when it comes to that stuff.
I think that, yeah, it's just hard. I will say that we haven't, or you haven't seen, because my parents have owned their business for 37 years, I believe. But my parents have had multiple family members work for them. And although right now you don't see any bad stuff going on because there's really no family members working, my parents have been through the ringer with their family members as well.
Right.
And so I don't want to say it's inevitable, but in all my experiences that I have had or seen, it's
yeah. And I also want to make it clear that there is a real you kind of said it earlier. There is a real difference between working for family and being in business with family. There is a very clear distinction there, and I'll say we've had no issues in my opinion, with the family members that like work for us.
I agree.
Where the issues have come into play is when you're like into business together and investments together or whatever with those family members. That's where all the issues seem to come into play, because that's where it's just things get funny.
I have a question for you. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Do you feel like the more businesses you own, the more successful you become with these other businesses that family members are involved in that have nothing to do with the success over here, it makes them want more because they see you achieving more over in this area?
100%.
And so now it's like, well, this business,
because there comes the mindset of like, well, you have a lot and I don't. And so even though none of these businesses or things may pertain to what they're involved in over here,
right?
They feel like, oh, well, he's fine. He's well enough. He's got enough. Like I should get more over here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and it's just like, that's not how things work. Just because I've, been successful in a certain way does not mean you deserve more success and money as well. And
I will say something, and you know me, I am one to definitely humble you. I'm not one to like boost your ego all the time. I like to hold you accountable, and I know you like to hold me accountable as well. You do a lot of generous things for people that are not publicly announced.
Yeah.
And so I guess when it comes to that part of you, that when I see you do these things that are incredibly generous, and then to have people be angry when you don't give to the extent of what they want, and they forget all the generosity that came for this moment, it's hurtful.
Yeah.
But I will also say, I'm speaking from our experience. It takes two to tango. So they also have their side of the story as well. Right? I'm not going to sit here at all and believe that we're 100% right in everything that we do, because we're human. We're not going to do it all right, all the time. I just think that in the future, so that we can keep the peace among family, working for us and working
in tandem.
Right. It's best to probably just be minimally involved, but I also don't think that's the case for everybody, because I do believe that there are families that have incredibly successful businesses that they do together.
Yeah.
And so it's not I think it's a case by case situation.
I think it really also comes down to if you are going to get into business with family, you have to go into business with family that has the same work ethic, the same drive, the same just mentality in life. Like if you are just this go get it workhorse who's just always on the move and improving, and you go into business with a family member who's the complete opposite of that, it's going to cause problems. So it's like, that's why myself and Tom's partnership has worked so well. I was
just about to say that,
There's lots of business partners that aren't family where things go completely wrong and sour, and there's a lot of bitterness. So
my parents just...
So family, like friends or strangers are not excluded from this whole conversation. But like the reason Tom and I work so well is because we have the same just goals, ambitions, drive, fortitude, like everything just aligns. And so us as business partners and everything we do works really well.
Right.
So like when you go into business with family, you have to make sure that family is you. You know what I mean? Like it's your same, just, it's like you're not polar opposite, but you're like a mirrored version of yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then I think like that's why your mom has like been so great with everything, because we're like the same. And so it's like it works.
I think for you and Tom, getting a little off subject here, but for you and Tom, you don't do the exact same things in every single one of your businesses, but I think you guys balance each other out because you're both willing to do whatever it takes. So you may have your strengths in this area and Tom's strengths are over here, but together it goes like this.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff Tom does. He's a little MacGyver that I absolutely know, like love you to death, you can't do.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that I'm sure you do, like when it comes to marketing and stuff like that, it's natural, it's in you.
Right.
That Tom is good at making, you know, all the graphics and stuff like that, but reaching the people, like how you post, how you know what to do, when to do it, that's more your lane.
Right.
And so I think you and Tom just really, really, really balance each other out. And it has turned out to be a very healthy partnership. And again, going to refer back to my parents' restaurant. My dad, and I don't care if they hear this or not, but my dad went into business with his childhood best friend that he had known since he was like 5 years old. They just split this partnership earlier this year, like in the first quarter. And it was rough for the last like 10, 15 years.
Right.
It's been really, really rough. And it's because they just have different work ethics. My dad is more like you and my mom. And that's why my mom and dad, they didn't work together all the time because they both wanted to be the boss. You know what I mean? It was hard for one to bend to the other, but they both worked their asses off. And that's why that restaurant is still open.
Right.
Because there's a lot of restaurants that have failed.
Have come and go.
Yeah, since then. And I think for you and I definitely am not the workhorse that you and my mom are. Like, and I'll admit it right now. Like, you told me the other day, when you get back in there and you check those Prism DMs, like, it's going to be a lot. And I'm like, that's fine. I control my work schedule. My work schedule does not control me. Like, I don't work as hard as you work.
Right.
But I think for us, finding the balance of, you're in charge over here for these businesses, I'm in charge over here for these businesses. And
a lot of people were like, oh no, not the wifey. Like, people thought I was like talking about you, and I'm like, no. Like, obviously, just with anything, like, we have disagreements on how certain things should be done or whatever, but like, no, none of that was directed at you in any way. But yeah, there was people like, oh no, I hope you and Chanel are okay.
No, it's not us,
like,
guys. Because at the end of the day, I'm the real boss. I'm just kidding.
The HBIC. You know what I mean?
No, I just try to stay in my lane. I know what my lane is. And I think, what was that?
That was my phone, I think, somewhere. Yeah, over there.
Oh. I think that it could work well with family when you have people who are willing to bend. Yeah. When you have people who are willing to say, I don't have to be right and be in charge all the time.
Right.
And so I think kind of your situation is, I guess it's our situation, is you have people who just want to be right. And it's like, hey, I'm not arguing about right or wrong here. It's just the facts are the facts. At least that's how we feel from our point of view. I don't know. I think it can turn around. I really do. But I just feel like what makes it hard with family versus working with someone who's not family is there's a lot more emotion involved. Yeah. And so it makes it a little bit more tricky of a situation, because now you're not only trying to manage the business, but you're trying to manage feelings as well. And I think that if you do have a strong enough family unit, which I believe you do, that it will work itself out. But it has to be dissolved. The work side of it has to be dissolved. And I don't know if I've ever said this on a podcast or publicly, but your aunt told us a long time ago, well, not that long ago, but a couple years ago, she said, be careful who you get into business marriage bed with. And I say this to you all the time. Yeah. Because it's something that really, really stuck with me. And what she meant by that was, most people are not just going to meet somebody and within a couple weeks go off and get married, or even a couple months. A lot of people are going to date a minimum of a year, a minimum of 3 years. You know what I mean? They're going to give themselves time. They're going to date that person. They're going to meet their family. They're going to see how that person moves and operates before they just go get married to them. Right. And so I know what she meant by that was, just because it sounds like a good idea and it's a great business and you have the potential to make a lot of money, does not mean that that money is worth what you're going to go through in that partnership. And so you need to court and date these business partners longer than just a couple weeks or a couple months before you jump into business with them. But that also includes your family. Right. Because although you know them on a family, intimate relationship over here, does not mean you necessarily know how they operate when they're working. Yeah. No, I agree. And so I think the mistake that was made was, we jumped into something, like you were just saying, with people who just don't work the way that you work.
Yeah, they don't operate the way that I work, and then it
And
causes
they don't
problems. And there was no like really pre-agreed upon things. It was just kind of like, yeah, I want to invest. Okay, cool. Like, cool.
Right.
Give you this percentage. Like,
Right.
just like it was just so, just on the fly, on the go, you know. And then yeah, all of what you just said is spot on. And then yeah, on top of it, then the way that it was just kind of like formulated was just a recipe for disaster.
Yes, yeah.
Because
Because you have a strong personality.
I do. I'm very blunt. Like I'm not.
You don't sugarcoat it.
I don't sugarcoat things. I'm not super emotional, and I'm just like, this is what it is.
Take it or leave it.
And some people think I'm, you know, pretty mean and rude, and it's not even that I'm trying to be mean or rude. I'm just, I just don't like fluffing things. It's just, I'm straight to the point. My text messaging is very hurtful. It's really not hurtful in my head when I'm typing it. I'm just like, oh no, we're not doing that. But I'm just trying to be straight to the point, and then someone gets that on the other end and is like,
I'm like, no, let me tell you what I'd be thinking.
Bitch.
I'd be like, oh, hell no, he's not talking to me like this. That is why I have to pick up the phone sometimes. I'm like, who are you talking to like that?
Yeah.
And you'll be like so calm. And so I think that your non-sugarcoating personality just comes off very blunt, and it's even hard as your wife to sometimes take that. So I can only imagine, and I know, and I'm with you more than anyone else. I can see how some family members may take that hard as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, all that to say, I do think there is room for people to be in business with family.
For sure.
I just think that it has to be done a very proper.
I think the 3 rules are, if you're going to business with family, you need to have the same temperament, goals, motivation, work ethic. Like you're the same kind of, you know, in there. Number 2, you need to go into it with a clear understanding and outline and like contract of like, hey, this is what it's going to be, but this is also subject to change.
Which can be written in a contract.
Yeah, this is also subject to change if, you know, certain people aren't holding up certain parts of the bargain, or like the work has shifted because of a new whatever life change. And then 3 is just I forgot what I was gonna say 3 was. I blanked.
Do you have pregnancy brain?
Pregnancy brain through osmosis. I mean, I guess those would be like the
top 2
big things. Unless you got a third.
No, those are spot on.
Yeah, so 2 things.
There were never 3.
there was never 3. I don't know. But anyways,
I think that's it. You got anything else you need to add?
I don't think so. I mean, that was a good little conversation, good little talk. Maybe gotta do this more regular, just our own little
sit down
JO show plus Chanel.
It's not the JO show, it's the So show.
The So show. Yeah, well, I mean, just when things come up, we can sit down and talk about it.
But I do want to end with saying, because I don't want any of your family to,
if they watch this or whatever,
for it to come off the wrong way. I think personally, this is just how I feel. People are entitled to feel how they feel. Doesn't mean that their feelings are like 100% accurate with the events that occurred.
Right.
But how are we going to look at somebody and tell them not to be hurt, or not to be mad, or not to be whatever it is, right? I do truly feel for both parties that ill intent is not like.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, if any of my family members are watching this, I don't believe there's ill intent on any side. I think we all want what's best for each other, but I think there's just
it's just gone about in a weird
it's just gone about in a weird way, and there's certain people, you know, have opinions and viewpoints on what they think they're owed and whatnot, but it's like, everyone's got their own differencing opinions, but at the end of the day, like, the things that those family members are involved in wouldn't exist if it weren't for me, and if I were gone tomorrow, they would all crumble and fall apart. You know what I mean? Right. So, or wouldn't exist. So it's just like, hey, you know, I don't want to be mean, but it's just, just leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there, because you.
But I love my family, so shout outs to my family.
That's so nice.
Do you love your family?
Oh, of course. But I love you, number one.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Chanel, sign us out. He hit us with something.
Welcome to the Sojo Show. We're out. Wait, what is it really called, though?
That wouldn't be welcome.
Oh, I mean, thanks for listening to the Sojo Show. And we out.